And a very good evening to you all, and welcome to yet another one of our evenings exploring all things spiritual and spiritualism. And tonight, very pleased to have the company of Ewan Irvine from Edinburgh. Ewan, a very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. I loved the countdown and the music there as we're coming in, and it was like the news, Sky News or something, counting down from 30 to 0.
Hopefully we're going to be a lot more positive than the
I hope
news.
so, yeah.
So welcome everybody joining us now, and also a very big welcome to everybody that will be watching us at a later date on Catch Up. Good evening. Ewan, sir, a little bit about yourself, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, it was last year that I reached, I suppose, middle age, so that was 50. And I'm planning to stay that way for a long time. But the way I progressed throughout the years is that when I was growing up, I've got to be honest, I never saw dead people. You know, that didn't happen. There was kind of an awareness that was something different. I could pick up on things, emotions. I used to feel a wee bit edgy, and then something would happen a day or two later, or maybe in family, things like that. So there was these little things going on. And I remember at a later date, just for something I was writing, I asked folk, what did you think of me growing up? And that was probably the wrong question to ask. But folks said, well, you're always a little bit different. So I kind of left it like that. But growing up as well, I had this absolute interest in ghosts. I loved the paranormal. I loved the stories of old Edinburgh. When we went away on holiday, my parents loved to visit the kind of stately homes, the guided tours. And it used to be my first question was, well, where's the ghost? Where's the haunted room? So I loved all that. And then my father died when I was 17. And about a year or two later, my mother went along to a spiritualist church. She went along with a friend, first time she'd ever been. And she came back, and second time, it told me a message that she had been given. And I was Mr. Skeptic then. And then they had a day of mini readings. And I went along, and I had my mini reading. And I was one of these folk, I sat like that. So I wasn't giving anything away, not a thing. And I decided I was going to keep a straight face, give nothing away. And I remember one of the first things she said to me was, I have a gentleman here and his name's John. Well, that was my father's name. But me being me, thinking, that's a very common name, so let's see where you go. And she said, well, he's pointing to his chest, but I know it's not his heart. She said, I can't work this out. Well, my father actually died from breast cancer, which was very unusual at that time. And she told me different things. One, she told me that my mother had had a miscarriage quite late on in pregnancy. And I said, nope, not a chance. Until I asked my mother. And my mother had never disclosed this, never told anyone. But it was true. There were other things as well. She told me that I had an aunt who had called herself a little bit of a witch. And she dabbled. That was the word. She would have dabbled. And after that aunt passed, we were clearing out the house. And this was years further down the line. And there was a wee... my uncle was a joiner, and he'd built these built-in display things. And one had this kind of double door at the back. It was quite strange, but went into an alcove. And when we opened it, behind it was various bits and pieces, including something like the 1930-something book of fortune telling, which I still have to this day. So it soon transpired that she was the one that dabbled, and the more we found out, she did the tea leaves. And then also found out that my great-grandmother, my father's side, read the flames and the fire for people. So all these bits and pieces came to fruition and found out. But she also said then, she said, just to let you know, I'm being told by Spirit that you'll be doing this in a couple of years. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think so. I just don't think so. but my interest kind of grew, and I think it grew because the more I looked at spiritualism, the more questions it answered. Questions. I used to go to Sunday school until one Sunday I refused to go anymore. My parents couldn't make me. But I think even at that young age, it just didn't kind of make sense to me, a lot of it. And it was kind of learning about spiritualism that did. It answered the questions I had. So I remember going to one of the workshops, and it was based on colour and everything. And it just seemed to answer all these things going back, these little bits of intuition, that feeling that something's about to happen, and it did, that feeling that somebody was there, and it did. And it was at that point I remember thinking, actually, everything is just starting to make sense. So it was really from there that I took the mediumship route. And I just took it. I thought, I'll go where the spirit takes me.
Yeah.
So it's been since then, and I've been lucky enough to work in some of the centres and churches in the UK and beyond. I've still got that interest in the paranormal, and being able to do the mediumship for that. So we're now talking 30 years later. So now that I'm 51, I look back, and that's 30 years which have just flown by like that.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Once you get on that spiritual path, you just turn around and go, "Where did that go? Where did that? What happened?" You're very closely aligned to the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre.
Yes,
correct? Yeah.
Yes, the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre, lovely building in Edinburgh's West End, which of course was set up by Andrew Hearn, who you had on a few weeks back with our book Arthur and Me. And so that opened, quite a good few years now. And I still remember taking a development class when the carpets were still going down. We'd actually all started doing things, even before the building was completely finished. Rolls of carpet in the hall and everything. But it's been a great place to work, and it's recognised everywhere, and the number of mediums that work there, and it's got the Spiritualist Church as well. And it does so much. That's my wee dog just barking in the background there.
That's all right.
So it does so much. So we've got the Spiritualist Church, we have workshops, there's alternative therapies go on, all different things. We do readings. Unfortunately, it's closed at the moment due to the current crisis. But he will calm down in a minute or two. So it's closed at the moment, of course, due to the current crisis, but we're doing so much online. Technology's moved on. We couldn't have done this 5 years ago, couldn't have done this 10 years ago, but for some reason, we can now in 2020.
Yes, very interesting. That's one of the topics for tonight. You've just brought that in, that the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre being closed. I'm not fully conversant with the lockdown laws up in Scotland, but I take it, are all the churches shut now out there at the moment currently?
Most are. There was some that were open and practicing social distancing, and I worked in 3 or 4, and really good measures put in place, and it was absolutely great. But since various tiers, and for instance, Glasgow, which I worked in at the beginning of the week and was okay at the beginning of the week, is now in tier 4, which is almost a complete lockdown. So they've had to close now. So everything's a bit up in the air. What's happening?
Yeah, same in the UK with the lockdown we currently are in. They included all the churches, sadly, but it has brought on this online revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you or I to go back a year and say, right, we're going to be doing online services, online mediumship, I'm pretty sure we both looked at each other and gone, well, I don't think so. Would you agree?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there was some stuff being done online. There might be people that did, you know, Facebook videos, things like that. But the idea of doing demonstrations online were kind of non-existent. The idea of doing a development circle online was non-existent. A divine service, again. And it does, I do find it quite interesting, you know, kind of looking at it, thinking, was there something higher going on? You know, we've got this absolutely awful pandemic, absolutely awful. At the same time, something is allowing us to bring this spiritualism to the wider community, drawing folk in that have perhaps never encountered it before, but also those from other parts of the world and in remote areas. And they can suddenly come together. We can come together. And so the idea of a development circle where it's as close as possible to the real thing can be done from the comfort of your own home.
Indeed. And again, it's another prime example of our mind limiting what spirit can do, because we just think here at Paul Church pre the lockdown, but we knew things, you know, it's obvious things are getting rough. So I did actually put in a couple of extra aisles in the chairs just to make sure that people weren't sat on top of each other having to push past and everything. Just brought in social distancing in a way in the church. And one comment came back and somebody said, oh, well, spirit can't work with these gaps in the chairs. And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure they can. And now we're finding, you know, we are serving churches hundreds of miles away from us, and that connection, that clarity of connection and the quality of evidence that's coming through is just as good, if not better, than we were used to.
And I kind of do wonder, because I know myself, you know, travel quite a bit. So, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, I was supposed to be in Belfast, and I checked in my flights and everything. It was the Monday, flights checked in. I thought, oh, it's going, it'll be fine. And then I think I got in on the Wednesday, and the airline had cancelled all flights. And I found I could go out, but I couldn't get back. So, of course, this was very late notice. I had to cancel because there was no way I could, you know, almost get over, and equally definitely not get back. So I found that a bit strange. But where I was going with this was that, you know, we travel to churches and centres, and I love doing it. I love going. But, you know, at rush hour on the M8 or the motorway, and you've got an hour and a half drive, 2-hour drive, you're sometimes quite tired when you get there. If, you know, I'm not saying I have road rage, but there are the odd wee moments, let's face it, we all have. We cannot all be spiritual the whole time. And I have to say, at rush hour in the middle of Glasgow or even the middle of Edinburgh, it's difficult to be spiritual the whole time. So you'll go through the door and sometimes you do feel, you know, you're not quite yourself. It's taken time to calm down, you know, and bless them. You always, the one great thing about Spiritualist Church is you get a lovely wee cup of tea and a warm welcome as soon as you're through the door. So that helps. But we do have to try and get into that zone. And you know, just comes with practice to be able to make that link as best we can and bring those messages forward. But what I have found working online is that I'm in the house, I've not had those distractions. I can spend that time to meditate, and I just find my link can often be stronger.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't take away the fact that I love going to the churches and I love going to the centres. So, you know, I'd never ever stop doing that. But I just wonder if there's something about working from home where we can just take that little bit of time. It's free. It's free from the stresses of the travel and getting there and everything.
As you were talking, I had a thought. At my age, that's dangerous. But I was just thinking, quite often, the chairs or presenters of the evenings would sort of like stress with the congregation or the audience or whatever the scenario is, tonight will only work with your energy.
Mhm,
So you've got to be really upbeat and give all your energy to the medium, otherwise it's not going to happen.
mhm.
Well, now is really, really challenging, that statement, as in, because my audience is normally my cat, who's fast asleep on the swivel chair over there, happy as Larry.
Yeah, whereas my cat disappears, and as you can see, my dog just went and barked at something at the front door, so he just went and ignored me completely. So he was off. Um, but yeah, we're bringing the mediumship to, I suppose, a lot more folk that are taking part, and many just curious. A lot of folk that would not come to a spiritualist church.
Yeah.
Just would not enter the doors of a spiritualist church. And that, I think I think this old concept of, they speak to the dead.
Yeah.
And I remember that from 20 years ago. And we did a wee radio show, and we had folk calling in for readings. But some of the emails we got from folk, saying this is totally wrong, talking to the dead, and we got quoted different things from the Bible and different things like that. And it's you don't kind of get that now. Times have moved on. And I think people are more accepting of everything that's done and what we do.
Yeah, very true. I mean, you go back to the heyday of spiritualism, and I remember a story about Gordon Higginson was demonstrating a village hall somewhere, and his mum was always there. And during the demonstration, they actually had bricks coming through the window because people were that anti what was going on. And Gordon's mum was I never met this lady, but she was quite a strong character, and her response to the bricks coming through were, "Ignore that, carry on."
I do remember, and this is many years back, going to a wee village, let's say somewhere in Scotland. I'm not going to name the village, but I remember I was told in the hall that was held in. They said it's taken us a long time to be able to do this. And I remember saying how, and they said, well, the minister rules the village with a rod of iron. And I thought, oh, okay, how's this going to go? And it actually all went fine. But I remember this lovely lady came up to me at the end, and she kind of said, people weren't quite sure whether to come along to this or not. But she said, I'm really glad I did, son, because it was between you and the Scottish country dancing. So she decided to come along and miss the Scottish country dancing. But this was the first mediumship that had been done in this village.
Yeah, it's amazing. Spiritualism, how far it's moved on. Down here in Dorset, I recognised last year, we are the Paul Christian Spiritualist Church, and I am not going to be the minister to drop the title of church out of the name because it's been there for over 100 years. So I'm going to leave that for the next one to deal with. But I did recognise that to some people, the word church, the word centre presents some sort of a barrier. So there's a small town, almost a village type affair, about 25, 30 miles from us. Got a lovely community hall there. And I thought, okay, let's try a spiritual centre. And we'll meet once a month. We'll give it a go and just see how that goes, just as a taster. And me being me, trying to please everybody, thought, oh, I know, I'll email all the local clergy just to say hello, what we're about, introduce ourselves. If you want to know any more, please ask. And unfortunately, that had quite the opposite effect, shall we say, without going into too greater detail. And I was really shocked. I was really shocked that in this day and age that it would incur so much antagonism, which is sad. Because spiritualism means so much to so many, not to everybody. I get that.
And I think when you think about it as well, we've all had experiences in life, and with those that have passed, and whether we call it a ghostly experience of someone visiting, coming back, or we felt somebody's there, or something's happened, we'll all have either had that experience or we know someone that has. So I always think, why is this thing about, talking to dead people, or the idea of spiritualism, when we'll have all encountered it at some point or more in our lives?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And this is it with spiritualism. It's got the ability to give evidence to substantiate what we're talking about. But it is getting over those hurdles of getting people through the door. Well, as we're seeing now at this time, that hurdle is actually being removed because more. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was about to agree with you totally there, is that, so many folk are now tuning in and watching the mediumship, and perhaps it's maybe out of curiosity, out of interest, and just seeing it and just seeing what happens, and that it is perfectly normal, that the lights don't go off, our heads don't turn 360 degrees, we don't have ghosts coming out of the walls, well, usually not.
Yeah.
But it is normal, and I've seen folk that have been skeptical, and when they've had that little bit of proof, they might go away still a certain degree skeptical, but it's something to think over when you brought through their mum or their gran, and the evidence that they've brought through, which is what we do at the end. That's what we do. It's to bring that comfort that life does go on.
Definitely. And to sow those seeds, people like that, they may go away thinking, with their sharp edges slightly blunted because there's something there that happened and I'm not quite sure. But that's always spirit saying, well, we're here, what are you going to do about it? And this is where it's continually sowing those seeds, not pushing it, but just sowing the seeds. And then it's up to people, there's the old saying about horse to water. But yeah, it's very interesting at this time, and I'm sure with the future as well, on how do you think we will progress? All right, just say, for example, I'm not one of these people of I can't wait for it to get back to normal by any means. But if I won't tell you what my mum used to say about if. It's very rude.
I'm trying to think what it might rhyme with to get, but
it was something about if your aunt had something, she'd be your uncle, and I won't fill in what the something was. Okay. But anyway, moving on. If we ever return to if we ever evolved into a new way of life where things did start to open up again and people felt, okay, this is getting to be my new normality thing, what's going to happen with this online revolution?
I don't. I mean, I go back to the lockdown that was national in spring, and there was a few things that happened. Now, I bear in mind that behind this is a devastating pandemic, and I wish we had never had it in the first place. It's awful. I know folk that have had it. I know folk that have died from it. So it's absolutely awful. During the lockdown, there was a folk that made quite a few comments about how people had changed. In many ways, people have become nicer.
Yeah.
There was a lot more giving. there was a lot more, and you could see that even on things like, and I come back to the social media, and many places will have a Facebook site for their local area. And suddenly folk are coming together. Somebody needs this. Oh, they've got that. Or trying a wee online event and remembering. And then the local shop was doing wee deliveries if you couldn't get out. Everybody started becoming that little bit, I think, nicer.
Yeah.
Some folk actually said they liked that time because it was a quiet time, and they began to reflect on what they had done and what they wanted to do. Many folk have taken up and tried different things they've never done before, art, writing, different things like that. So we've had that. And I think within that, we've all had that chance to look within ourselves. I know I've done that. And, I've looked back on 50 years where, I have made some tremendous mistakes and things in life, but also, there's been a lot of positive things as well. And I know it made me look going forward because I looked at the fragility of life. Suddenly when everybody's faced during that lockdown, and still now with that look at your own mortality.
Yeah.
And everybody is scared. And it's only now I think we're starting to perhaps see that little, glimmer of light getting stronger in the weeks and months to come. So I think people have changed, and I hope we don't all go back, or, that nice, this new norm may include a nice. And we start looking at our own lives more. Even folk were talking about working at home. And I know a lot of parents went on about school, homeschooling, and they were, but it was time spent with the kids. It was time spent with families. And I wonder if we're looking more at who we are in life and our own lives, and how we progress and how we make more of us. Looking at that spiritual. The great thing I always remember when one of the first workshops I ever attended, and I was told, think about spiritualism. And they said, what's the most important part of that word? And some folks said spirit, some folks said spiritual. And she said, what about the wee ism at the end? We're thinking, the wee ism? The ism? I said, well, if you break that down, ism, ISM, inside me, spiritual, inside me.
Right,
And
yeah.
I've always seen since then that as spiritualism. Spiritual inside me, and that encompasses spiritualism, and looking inward now and looking at our own lives and how we can help others, but how we can make our own lives more meaningful. And I think that's something that'll progress. And as we have everything online, and I know I've spoken about mediumship, but of course the other most important part is healing as well.
Very true.
And how that is given. And able to do that online now, able to sit and give that healing out. Able to see, I know there's been healing services and different things like that. So again, we're bringing that to folk. A simple thing like we have a Facebook check-in each Friday, and we're planning to do this over Christmas, New Year, but allows folk just to see what we're doing at the centre, but a quick hello as well, and different things. So I think the online, I think that's going to grow. I think it'll always be there now. As I said earlier, I love working at the churches and centres, and will always do that. And there will always be a place for them. What I see now folk asking is, but if you're doing something from the centre, can you still, or from a church, can you still do something online? So I'm beginning to wonder now if we'll be starting to stream, if that's the word, our services, our talks, what we're doing, if they'll start becoming more central to social media, to Zoom, everything like that. And again, you know, the development circles and where folk who live in the remotest of areas. And I know, for instance, one lady who goes, she's in America, and she just takes her laptop into her wee caravan that's next to the house, and she'll just join in a development circle from the wee caravan. She gets away from the family, and that's her wee space, and it allows her to develop. Now, she could not go to a centre, not go to a church because there's nothing nearby.
Yeah. No.
Here's the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I fully get that. I love your comment there about the streaming. I don't know if you're aware or not. We started streaming our services here in Poole, and it far exceeded any expectations I had of it. We would regularly have, say, 15 people physically in the church, and regularly have 180 to 200 people watching it from all over the world.
Yep.
And that just blew me away when I was seeing these figures coming in. And yeah, it is that reach. So yeah, I agree with you. The definitely working with people, I miss that so much. Our first service back here after the lockdown, I'd plan, you know, I'm a bit retentive, shall we say, about things. So I like it all to plan, and woe betide anybody who goes off course. But the first service was all planned out, and of course, the first service, people back in and streaming. You know, there's all sorts going on, and I got on top of everything. And I walked out, and I burst into tears because there were people back in the church, and that was the one damn thing that I didn't plan on. So yeah, that closeness of people certainly will never go away.
It's needed, because one of the things about, you know, and again I say the churches and the centres, but you know, you'll find that almost everybody who comes along to the church or the centre, they'll always say they go away feeling that little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where there's also still the place. They might not have got a message, but there's something. There's something about the energy, something about the atmosphere and the folk.
Yeah, most definitely. When I walk out ready to start the service, and especially since lockdown and that little pause that we had when we were able to meet, on most days you would come out and everybody would be bunnying away. You know, we are all very distant, we're 2 meter distance and everything, all the precautions being taken. But people want to talk. People need that communication. They need to just talk about something. If you listened in, you think, why are you talking about that? But it's not our importance, it's their importance.
Yep. And we need that connection, and that's one of the things that the churches and the centres give. We get that to a certain extent online, because people will say hello to each other, or there's things in the comments, but it's still not the same as that physical. I mean, human beings, we need that contact.
Yeah,
we need it.
And also, there's a lovely comment there from Tina Albert, because being out in Germany, they haven't got any spiritual churches there. So it's wonderful that we can reach all that way and include everybody into that moment, because we ourselves know us, but to everybody else, we're all these different people because of our interaction. So everybody that knows us has got like a different version of us, you know, as friend, partner, boss, employee, whatever that relationship is. It just sort of like changes that view slightly. But when we come into that spiritual church, or in the spiritualism, we're online or in physicality, everybody can express that side of them. And that was something I really, really did miss in the first lockdown, was although our presentations were going on and wonderful, when I had the odd opportunity of talking to somebody in the flesh about spiritual stuff, it was just like, oh, I need to get rid of all this stuff because it's just all there, and I haven't been able to tell anybody.
It's amazing, because one of the things I remember, you know, when I was in the development circle, you know, in the very beginning for 2-3 years, and then of course you get the chance to give a message on the platform at the church. So I gave that message and thought, well, that's fine, that's it. And a couple of weeks later was a chance to do 2 messages. I said, I don't do 2 messages, I just do 1 message. I don't do 2.
Yeah,
You
me
know,
too. Yeah.
what do you mean 2? And then as time went on, it was then going out to the churches, and I always used to think, well, what if, especially when I'm doing the philosophy, what if it just all goes blank? What if nothing happens? I don't get anything. And I always used to go along with a poem or something in my pocket. And it was always there just in case. And then I remember about a year or 2 later, I was still doing this. And I'd maybe used it once, that was all. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, I don't need this. I've as long as I put my trust in them, I'm fine. And it was a big learning point from there. But equally, you know, given that philosophy, and I've been in an audience when I've heard the philosophy as well. And I think one of the great things about hearing that in the centre of church is that the words, hearing those words, there's an energy of the words actually in the presence within a church or centre that I think sometimes just hit you more or connect with you more.
Yeah, true, because you do actually get that energy, that feel of it. I've seen some awesome philosophers talk and just been sat there spellbound. Time just disappeared.
Yep.
You know, whether they were talking for 10 minutes or 10 hours, it wouldn't have mattered because I was just there in that moment. Very interesting. Some lovely comments coming in here. There we go. So online's the only way Jennifer can enjoy the talk. So absolutely wonderful. And one of our watchers from America, same thing out in America. You see, something with all the guests that we've had on from various parts of the globe, something I hadn't actually realised, and I'm sure a lot of people watching, that the UK is very spoilt for the amount of spiritualist churches and centres it has.
Yep, we definitely are. And you know, I spent a year in Spain, and there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing at all. And that was one of the things I missed and realised. Well, there's some countries, some places don't have a lot. I remember also, you know, Northern Ireland have got a absolutely fabulous church in Belfast. But I remember being told it was the only one for many, many years. And same with different parts of Scotland. You know, the further north you got, the less there was. So we're a bit spoilt from choice, Edinburgh, Glasgow, but different areas, it's sometimes quite hard to find somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny that you do get groupings. Down here in Dorset, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in quite a close area. Then you go like 30 miles to Weymouth and you've got 2 there. But when you start going in country a bit, it's barren. There's not a lot there, if anything at all.
Yep.
So, but how do you feel with the where we are at the moment with the churches and centres? Obviously, financially, there's a lot of people really suffering and not looking good.
And it may be unfortunate, very unfortunate, some may have to close. Let's hope not, but it may happen. I am hoping that in the months to come, as a kind of normality comes back, that we're able to open them up again, even if it's gradually, and again bring back people into the centres. And if we can still stream these, if we're allowed to, and stream them on the web, then all the better, and our courses and talks and things like that. So again, reaching that wider audience.
Indeed, yeah. My workings with Spirit is very much of the understanding Spirit is all about education and learning.
Mm-hmm.
The message is, and never, I'm not detracting from the value of the healing of value of evidential mediumship for both sides of life. You're not just the person receiving it. I always say I'm working for Spirit, not the person sat in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a beautiful gift. But the philosophies, the teachings, the understandings, and encouraging people to go through their own unfoldment in other lines apart from mediumship, be it just even things like the volunteers who come into the church and help out.
Exactly. Yep.
I've got so blessed with some amazing volunteers down here in Poole. I know a lot of other churches have the same, but not as good as mine, I'll have to say, because two of them are watching. So, but yeah, and it's being part of it, and it's being in that community feeling.
That's the thing, yeah.
Very, very much so.
And it is about that, cup of tea afterwards, and the biscuits, and everybody getting together and talking and coming together, and everybody that runs the church and volunteers, makes the tea, takes the door money at the door or whatever, and makes sure there's always raffle prizes there for the raffle, publicity, everything like that. It's what makes a church, is the volunteers.
And I do hope that a lot of these places will be able to come out of this hibernation period. But the ones that are still going, they've got a lot of work to do, because, as you were saying earlier on about it was our own mortality that was challenged. We were suddenly woken up from going day to day to actually there may not be a tomorrow. Have you thought about that? And a lot of us hadn't. I know myself, I ended up getting somebody local down here and running through everything that made the church work. And he went, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because we're living in a world where tomorrow morning I could wake up with a cough. And if anything happens to me, what's going to happen?"
Yeah. And again, we've been faced with this looking at our own mortality, and the whole world has been faced with this deadly disease, where yes, any one of us could take this tomorrow and not make it through a few days, but that's the severity of it. So we do start to look at our own lives, and perhaps the meaning of our own lives, and it's now folk working from home, and as I said, the whole homeschooling and spending time with families, and I think maybe in a way we talk about things going round in circles. We even talk about maybe spiritualism kind of going back round in a kind of circle, but maybe we are getting back to the older days when it's much more about family life. Hopefully sitting around the table, having dinner, taking an interest in what everybody's doing. Because everything also now, I know we're talking about social media and the great thing technology is, but everybody's on their phones.
Yes, yeah, that breaks my heart when I'm out. It really does. Yeah.
So there's got to be, dare I say, a happy medium, if there's such a thing. If there's such a thing, there's kind of got to be, and I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. I know a lot more folk are looking at, if they've got that they want to look at their own mediumship or psychic ability or healing. So a lot more folk are looking at development circles and looking at saying, well, how do I develop?
Very true.
Which is
Very
another
true.
thing.
And also, is mediumship development right for me? This is one of the aspects of everybody's development. I started off as a healer. I didn't want to do mediumship. I wasn't interested in it. I wanted to do healing. But as the healing course unfolded, in the end, my teacher said, yeah, you're a medium. Go and sit in her class because obviously that's how they want you to work. And I went, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's amazing how we think we want to work, and there's another idea up there. And whatever you try, it goes into how they want you to work. So I find that more and more interesting. But I still love getting back to the circle development class. It's almost like going back to the grounding of it.
Yeah,
and I think it's often needed.
I do a thing quite often down in Poole, and I call it going back to 1.0 because I'm very, very conscious. The longer you're in spiritualism, obviously your knowledge base grows, your understanding of different subjects grows, your philosophy becomes firmer with your own understandings. And we do tend to forget. Somebody will walk in. A question somebody asked in one of our meetings here a long time ago before I was running the place. This lady was going on all afternoon on a talk, and a girl put her hand up and she said, what is a circle? The medium of the day, not nastily, it was just exact example of what I've just talked about. We're on that, we're working on that level, but we've got to be so mindful of people coming in. And the response was a bit sad because it was a bit dismissive of not understanding what a circle is. And I thought, hold on a minute, love. When you walked into a church, you didn't know what a circle was.
I didn't know what a circle was. No.
Yeah.
I remember being told, do you want to join a development circle? And I thought, that's good. Is that a circle? Is that a circle of, what happens, what goes on? And, it took a wee bit of getting used to, but the learning and that chance to work with spirit and connect with spirit, and it allows you to progress, it allows you to make mistakes as well, and you can go back to the circle. And I tell everybody this because it was a very valuable lesson I learned very early on. But perhaps, I don't know, I might have been in my 20s, early 20s, but I went off to do a church. And it was a great evening. Oh, everybody could take everything. And I remember going away thinking, you've done it, you're okay, you're good. And a week later, I went to a church and it was awful. Absolutely awful. I was drawing teeth. No one could take anything. I must have been standing there sweating and looking so uncomfortable. They must have been thinking, crikey, where did we get him from? And I remember going away and I remember sitting and I sent that thought up to Spirit and said, what happened? Everything was fine the week before. And I heard this voice coming back as loud and as clear as day. And it just said, son, you got too big for your boots.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that.
And what a lesson it was. But it had to happen. And of course, going back to the circle, of course, almost in tears the following week that all this had happened. It was, awful, terrible. But again, it's, I think I've learned throughout the years, if we meet spirit halfway, they'll meet us halfway.
Exactly. That is such a pertinent point, and one that I always emphasize. every medium's going to handle this bit of information differently. But when you're working with somebody and you pick up that there is a potential with that person to develop mediumistic gifts, I do inwardly cringe when I hear it saying from the platform, "Oh, you could be doing this in 2 years," and I just think, "Oh." Because I've had people come up and say, "Oh, right, well, I've been told I'm a medium, so you're going to book me," and I'm like, maybe not." But I'll always say to people, listen, Spirit's interested in you, but you will only get out what you put in. I said, put it this way: I've got a pair of hands. And without 8 years training, I'm not a surgeon. And if you want evidence of that, come up here and I'll do an operation on you. And it's stressing that it's not a quick fix. It's not something, a tin you can open.
And I always think as well with mediumship, it's strange how it works as well, because I've also realised that when someone's trying to get a message through, especially in a reading, a one-to-one reading, 9 times out of 10, with the right person, we give that reading, but there's always that one that we can't. And what I've realised is often it's because another medium is better placed, and I'll explain that, because I remember speaking to a lovely lady who's a medium, and I remember she said, "I get so many mums through now for children that have passed." She said, "So many mums." And we realised fairly quick that the reason that happened was because she had actually lost her own son.
Yeah.
And there was that strong connection with Spirit. Can you imagine a mum from Spirit knowing exactly, how the medium down here is a mum, how it's how they feel and how much better they can get that message through. So I'm always aware that there will be, for anyone, when we do mediumship, we will have these readings that we just simply cannot give. And I'm always aware there's a reason up there for it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% there. We're all different characters as well, and sometimes it's just a conflict of characters between us and the communicator where it's not going to work. It's as simple as that. It's just not going to work.
But we do as mediums, especially when we're, I don't think it ever leaves us. I don't think it ever leaves that. I mean, looking back on a night of mediumship we've done or a reading, and we look back and think, could I have done something else? Could I have done better? Could I have done... And we're always looking at that. And we also doubt ourselves at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we will all have had, when we were in our development groups and in our circles and everything, we've probably all came out with the saying, it could just be me, but this is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I've done it. Everybody's done it. And I always say to folk now, well, if it's you, why would that be brought into your mind or being given to you? Why, if it was you? So again, the development group, the development circle, it's that chance to build up the trust with Spirit.
Very much so. And also, Spirit is going to work with, when we're working on the mental mediumship side, one of my teachers taught me to build up my toolbox, which is just by flicking through magazines, going on the internet, looking at different images, all sorts of things, just so you've got that point of reference. That if something comes through, it can be shown in a way that you will understand. Because I've always said, I was an engineer, so I understand engineering terms, but I was not a very good mathematician, as some of my work showed. Never mind. But if Spirit were to give me the mathematical formula to turn water into petrol, I wouldn't understand it. It would be a complete no-go, because I just wouldn't get it. I wouldn't understand it. My mind isn't rigged to pick up on that vein, whereas you may well be. You may see it and go, oh yeah, that's a so-and-so.
I think as well. I mean, I'm looking back. I think there's some, where I'm talking about, what we get and images and things like that. And I do remember times where my conscious has come in and said, "Well, you can't give that." And I remember one in particular was I was given a reading to a lady, and it was about her son had passed. I remember that, and they were talking about spirit. Her son was talking about his grave, and people came along to visit and left bits and pieces. And I think, although he was a grown man, there was a wee teddy bear there and things like that. And then he started showing me just these cans of Coca-Cola. I thought, I can't tell her that the grave is scattered with cans of Coca-Cola. I can't. It was a conscious coming into it. And I remember Spirit just saying, I'm saying, no, you've got to tell her this. So I told her, and that was the vital bit of evidence, because she said he loved Coca-Cola, was always drinking Coca-Cola. And when his friends came along to visit the grave, they brought him a can of Coca-Cola.
Oh.
So there's that, it was kind of, I can't give this.
Yeah.
So it's always being aware as well what we can and what we can't. And again, it's that trust.
Very much so. I mean, we have got the basic guidelines of, you never give health advice without the caveat of consult your doctor or whatever. But yeah, sometimes these pieces of evidence, our mind goes, no. But like you say, that can be that cinching piece, that one final bit of evidence that goes, yes, you are talking to my son.
And that's, I think, what we're trying to do is it's got to be that bit of evidence. We always say the person's got to leave knowing it was their mom, their dad, their son, their daughter, their whoever, and that's what we're trying to bring through. And of course, we've always got to say when we start that link, we don't know who's, there is no script to mediumship. That's, to what we do. And that, I think that's one of the great things I find when we do a service, anything, even the philosophy, it's that link with spirit and what comes through. The mediumship, it's that link with spirit. They know what they're doing up there, but for that time on the platform, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about in the early days as well. And again, when you first go onto the platform and your prayers, you're bargaining everything, I'll stop drinking, I'll stop smoking, just give me 2 messages, I'll do that. And your prayer, and it's like about, 10 minutes long, and you're shaking and you can't even hold the cup of tea. And we laughed out because we talk about, someone said, we're talking about the medium's prayer. And someone said, what is the medium's prayer? And we said, it's help. Help.
Yeah. Yes, very true.
But I think, over time, it's the other thing I've learned is that, when you're on that road of spiritualism, that link with spirit, you may leave it a couple of times, you may go into another road, but you always come back.
Yeah. Often you hear in the church people coming in for their first time and get talking to them, and they say, my mum used to drag me to spiritualist churches when I was a kid. And I think, yeah, you hear that so often.
Yeah.
And I think, because I had exactly the same. As a kid, I was always around the spiritualist churches. I left, I led a life, I lived in London, I just got on with things, I moved abroad, blah, blah, blah. But here I am back to it. So,
which, just as you raised that, it takes me, I think where things have changed again is that, as kids, and naturally our parents want to protect us from the not so nice things in life. And we know there's 2 sure things, maybe 3 sure things that happen in life. We're born, we'll probably pay taxes, and then we'll leave this planet Earth. So, you know, the leave planet Earth, it's going to happen to all of us. But we're very much kept away from it in our younger days. It's a taboo subject. And something going back, we kind of were taught, or not taught, but conditioned to fear. And I always remember, again, in the younger days, my uncle had died. And I remember going in the car with my parents, and they said, don't mention your uncle. Why? You know, don't mention, you'll upset your... So it was things like that. But what I do notice nowadays is folk are so much more generally open with their children, you know, about things that happen. They'll talk to them, they'll discuss it. You know, a child that talks about seeing something or hear something, it's not as much now, you know, don't be daft and don't mention that again.
Yeah.
It's more taught about. And I even see that in my own family with my brother and my two nieces, you know, things are talked about, you know. Oh, I mean, at the end of the day, they love a good ghost story and things like that, you know. But going back in my day, I'd be told not to frighten anybody, you know. Don't talk of, you know, don't talk about that. Don't.
Yeah.
So I think again things have changed.
Yep. Yeah, they most definitely have. We've got a brand new world, and again, we've got another new world evolving even as we sit here and talk tonight.
Yeah.
But the one thing with this challenge to the mortality of everybody is what we were talking earlier, is it's also going to make people seek out answers, very much so. And I am a big believer in keeping this educational side going, not being detrimental to any medium that's working online, but there are some things coming up online, and I just think, oh dear, never mind. We need to get this knowledge out, this understanding, you know, that we live forever. Once you really, really get that, do you know what? It removes so much fear from this life. You know, I'm not eagerly looking forward to my last breath over here. But then again, I know it's going to happen. And I know it's going to be a step on to the next thing. And I will handle it at that time with that knowledge.
Yeah. And I remember also someone asking, well, you know, when they cross over, I think was the words, when they cross over, why do they come back and get in touch? Why do they feel the need? And I remember turning around somewhere, I don't know where it came from. I just turned around and said, because they're nosy. They were asking, why do they watch us? Because they're nosy. And then I thought, but actually, that's actually true. Because I don't know how you feel, but if I was to pop my clogs tonight and head over, I want to know what's happening down here.
Oh yeah,
I've still got family down here. I mean, I've threatened to haunt them, but you know, I still want to know what they're up to, how they're progressing. So I am being nosy. So when we contact them under the mediumship and they come back and they tell you about what's been going on and you know, talking about something that's happening or a conversation that's happened that, you know, only that person knows about, it's because, yeah, they're taking such an interest in how we go. And also just the other thing, I've noticed as well, I know I'm skipping on to another conversation here, but as scientific research goes on, and talking about, you know, it was thought that the brain was consciousness. The brain is consciousness. And now, well, actually, it's consciousness just uses the brain.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating how these are not things that would have ever been spoken about in the scientific community 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
I was talking to a psychiatrist from Broadmoor Hospital about spiritualism, and that was prompted how that conversation came about. I never say to anybody I'm a medium. Well, unless it's the church secretary, but I never say that, and it just came out, and I thought, why have I just said that? Anyway, he went on to talk, and he said, "Do you know what? It's very interesting." He said, "We've mapped 98% of the brain now. We've got 98% of the brain we fully understand on what it does, how it interacts, what it triggers, blah blah blah." And he just said, "But," and I said, "that you think some people can be affected by an external influence." And he went, "Hmm." And I thought, how somebody obviously top of their game to be working in such an institution is at least open to that way of thinking. We've had it here with the church. We've got quite a big hospital up the road with a big cancer unit attached, and they get a lot of people coming down here. A lot of doctors will do like 6 months secondments down here because we've got the top of the range scanners and everything. And quite a few of them have been coming to the church looking. And one, I was talking to him, lovely fella, and I said, "So, what are you finding in the church?" And he said, "Well, I'm just interested. We've got 2 wards over there. One is painted blue and one is painted green. And the people on the blue ward recover better than the people on the green ward."
Yep.
And I thought, it's magic, that people of science are going, well, hang on, we've exhausted every theory we've got, so let's start looking at other influences.
And again, I just find that, absolutely fascinating as time goes on. And my own mother passed. She passed from dementia, but 2 weeks before she passed, I remember sitting beside her, and she was just looking at the corner of the room, and it was a really, I can't describe the look. I really can't, because it was not only looking at the corner, it was looking past the corner. I don't have the words to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you could feel it as well. And she started kind of laughing. And I said, "What are you laughing at?" And she managed to point and say, "Heaven." I went, "Oh, okay." I just said, "What did you say?" She said, "Heaven." Now, me being me, I tend to come out and say the wrong thing at the wrong times. And I just said, "Oh, so what's it?"
That's a bloke thing. Don't worry about it.
And I said, "What's it like?" And she said, "Oh, it's just like here." And for a moment, I thought, well, I'm going to take my time going over there then. But it's just like, but no, that's what she said. I said, "Do you see anybody?" She said, "No." But a couple of moments later, she started talking to someone. And I said, "Who are you talking to?" She said, "Oh, you know who." I don't know who you know who's is to this day, but it was the look. And it was something I just cannot, I can't describe. There's no words to describe. You just knew there was something else there.
I had something, you may find this actually quite comforting. I hope so. It's meant to be shared in that vein. Once I was giving a message and I couldn't understand the condition. I'm very hot on, if I get a condition put upon me and I don't understand it, finding out what it is, so that the next time I come across it, I'm ready. On the first message, I gave what the condition was, and I said, "You need to help me because I don't know what this is." And he said it was dementia, and I went, right, that makes sense. The second time, I had that condition come upon me, and I went, "Oh, I've got this gentleman here. I know he's suffering from dementia." Described the guy, and the sitter was looking at me. Do you know what sitters do, don't they, at times? They sort of gurn. And that's why we should never look at a sitter, because they're pulling these faces and you're like, "Oh God, I'm so wrong." And you could see there was a question there. And I said, "I'm sorry, do you not understand who this man is?" She said, "I do, but he's still here. I'm going to see him in half an hour." And I went, "Oh my God, how interesting is that?" I said, "Give me one more thing, so for identity." And he gave his actual name. And I said, what a comfort that is. The body is there in that condition, but the spirit is free to roam even before the body is actually left. And one of our congregation, who's a nurse, she came afterwards and she said, that makes perfect sense, because she worked on a dementia ward, and she said sometimes they're there, but a lot of time they are not.
Mm-hmm.
And how interesting is that?
And you know, I've over the years spoken, as you have as well, probably spoken to a number of nurses who talk about, you know, end of life care, and how in these, you know, it can be a few days before, a week before, a couple of weeks before, but that connection that very often happens when someone sees spirit, and then any fear just seems to go.
Yeah, that peace.
That you know, that peace that is given. Um, And I think there was one very humbling moment when, maybe going back about 10 years or so, and talking about, you know, end of life care. But I was asked to do a reading for a lady in a cancer unit. She was terminally ill and she'd only been given a couple of weeks. And I remember that profoundly affected me, because so often, and quite rightly so, we're bringing that proof through that life goes on. But for someone who was about to pass, wanting to know, just to be assured that their loved ones would take them over.
Yeah.
So being able to give them that information of who her mum was, who her dad was, and that they were there, and that they would take her over and give that proof. I that affected me for weeks after.
It
It
does.
was.
Yeah, it does, because people forget sometimes or don't understand.
Mhm.
I've said, you know, when spirits say, I love you, I said, they're
Mhm.
not saying, I love you in my ear. They're putting that emotion upon me.
Mhm.
And it's there for that split
Mhm.
second, that whole emotion. I feel that
Mhm.
word.
So
Ewan,
to
sorry, carry on, sir.
No, I'm just thinking, just to be able to. I mean, it was a kind of a turning point, I suppose, with my own mediumship when that happened, and as I say, just realizing, uh, you know, how important it is for someone that's about to pass as well, and just to have that belief strengthened, as it was quite profound.
Yes, very, very, very. Ewan, absolutely wonderful evening with you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Enjoyed it. The
much.
time has
Absolutely
flown
brilliant. It
by.
has. It has. But yeah, certainly with practitioners of your standard, you know, going forward at this time, be it online or that day when we can return once more to our centres and churches, spiritualism will grow and evolve. And do you know what? We've got a lot of work ahead for us,
Yeah.
because people want to know more and more, and we've really got to work hard at presenting the right evidence for people, the right understanding, the right philosophies, the listening ear, and just offering out that hand. It's going to be a very, very busy future for us all.
And I think it's about being, you know, in everything we do, being kind to ourselves as well.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll always, you know, wherever we are, you know, in that mediumship or the spiritual, we'll make mistakes. You know, we're not going to get everything right.
Yeah.
It's being kind to ourselves as well. So whether it's, you know, kind of looking back on the night, immediately thinking, I wish I could have just given something more, or we look back and everything.
Yeah.
It's being kind to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, we are, and we've always got to remember that we ourselves are on this journey as well.
Mm.
You know, so we need to look after ourselves and know when to step back and know when to accept. That's what I can't turn back time.
Mhm. But as I said, if it's my turn at some point to pop my clogs, I'll be bringing messages through left, right, and centre and annoying everybody I can down here.
Well, when it's my turn, God help who takes over this church, because I should be here going,
I'll,
really?
uh, I'll, I'll become a ghost in the Arthur Conan Doyle Centre and just add to the ghosts that are there. They can name a room. They can name a room after me, or a haunted corridor or something.
I'll email Anne and suggest that. Ewan, absolutely brilliant evening, sir.
Loved
I
it.
can't thank you enough. It was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us online. That was lovely. What have we got coming up? Tomorrow night, we have an audience with Marion Damper Jeans, who lives in London, but she is from Denmark originally, and she is a medium who has worked a lot of the Nordic countries. Written several books and has a great wealth of knowledge about some of the history and some of the prominent people in spiritualism. And she really is a character as well. She, I'm darling to her and she's sweetie to me. So we're going to have an evening tomorrow with lovely Marion. And on Sunday here online on Zoom, we will be having our divine service. And this week we welcome Wendy Wharton as our medium for the service. We will be broadcasting that live on the church Facebook page, but please note on the Facebook page, it is view only. You cannot interact with the actual service. If you wish to interact and be part of that service, just find the event page on the church Facebook page, and there the Zoom link is. We open the doors at 2:45, and once the service commences at 3 o'clock, we do need to close the electronic doors. So, Ewan Irvine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
A wonderful evening. Absolutely. So, you could just go on for ages, but I can see people starting to get swayed by, I don't know, what is it, Come Dancing tonight? Or am I showing my age?
It's Strictly Come Dancing tomorrow night. Yeah.
Oh, right. So, well, whatever. I don't watch any of that. Thank you, sir. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
And good night, everybody. God bless.